Kufyud Amid Beige on the bottom of the page. We're talking about a geir, and if the geir dies, you bring it to the kohenim, and so on. So the last thing we're learning now, we're actually up to 2 dots, about 7 lines on the bottom of the page. And we said nosan as a kesev la'anshi mishpah. Remember, you have to pay if you swore false to the gate. Because of the swearing, it's not the stealing so much; it's the swearing that we have to go out there and make sure you pay back, or you burst them. If he passes away, you give it to the kohenim. And then we said that if you gave the money to the anshe mishmar, once you gave it, you cannot take it back. You can't take anything back. You can't mean anything either. So the Gemara says now. Sorry. Not so the case you gave it to Mishmar Amar Abaye. The fact that you cannot give it back, take it back, is Abaye says Shmami no. From here we have a proof that Kesev Mechaper Machs. Therefore, even though you didn't bring the carbon, if you gave the money, whatever you gave is already a shtickle kapara, is a partial kapara, and that's why you cannot take it back. Because we're about 6 lines in the bottom of the page, Kufyuma base. And so once you gave the money part of it, you can't, even though you didn't mean the carbon, you cannot take it back. Because if you tell me if you can tell me that that the money does not in any way give you kapara, it's only when you bring carbon. Have a meaning mahad el. Then we should say, look, you're not bringing the carbon. Let's say that once the Goslin died. We're talking about a case here where the Goslin gave the money to Kohanim, and then the Goslin died. So therefore, there's no point in bringing the carbon ashram because you don't bring a kapara for somebody who's dead. So the chayda of the Yoshin, can they go to the Kohanim and say, "Hey, give us back the money"? So we say, "No, why not?" Abai said, "It must be that the money is part of the kapara, and he did it while he was alive, and therefore that you can't take it back." My time, I would have thought that the children would say, "Look, my father gave us the money because he wanted to make a kapara, and the kapara doesn't happen until the carbon is brought. And since we're not bringing the carbon anymore, he died. So therefore, the whole thing was like a mekar. So that wasn't intention. Give it back the money. Kamashalan must be that the money is a part kapara, and therefore, once he gave it, he had at least a partial atonement." So this is a new logic now. The logic is, if it didn't turn out the way I wanted to, then the whole thing should unravel. El Me'ata, following your logic, a person set aside a carbon chatas, and then the owner died. If they died, the din should be go to chulin, because he did not set aside the animal if he knew he was going to die. He only did because he thought of bringing a carbon chatas. According to your logic that we follow, what the person's intention is. Is that died how many we say? In theory, you're right. It's a svara. So, the buyer believes in the svara that if this was not my intention, then the whole thing unravels. But by money, gives a partial kapara, so you leave it where it is. By a chatas, when it died, because that's how lachma yishina. A chatas should make 5 chatois that mesas that get killed if it doesn't think going to work out. One of them is if the owner died. Okay, that's a chatas. Run osham. The mesa by the owner died. That I don't. He didn't set aside for that reason. Again, we equate Osham to Chatas. And halach masina kosher b'chatas meisa b'osham roy. Whatever the law is by a Chatas, that you put it down. So by an Osham it wanders about. Elmiyata Yevama shenafla lifnei mukashchin. If a Yevama, let's say her husband dies, and now the brother of the husband is somebody's inflicted with all these boils, is a table chalitza. She shouldn't need a chalitza because she never married the guy thinking that she's going to end up with someone like that. If your logic is correct, and you said the only reason why by the Yosha cannot take the money back is because the money affected something as well, but if it wouldn't have affected anything, they could take the money back. Why can't she say, I don't need a chalitza, and unravel the whole kedusha? I never got married. If I would have known that if I married his brother that he would die, my husband would die, and I end up with his brother, I never would have married him. So the whole kedusha should fall apart, following your logic. Also, even though she knew there was a risk, she's happy to marry the guy. She'd rather be married than be alone. Because only a small risk that he'll die young without any children. And therefore, even if she knew the risk, she'd take a calculated gamble that life would go well, and therefore it'll be out of wedlock. Tracy, that's an interesting question. First of all, Tracy said this is only talking about kedushin from Erison. The Gemara's question is that what the whole thing should unravel before we get to the Shlokish, because kedushin of Nusuyin, the love, is so strong that when love blinds you to everything, and she wouldn't even take into account with the brother-in-law's mukashkin. But this is a very interesting question. So every time you buy something, you buy something, and it turns out to be that doesn't work after 3 months. It doesn't work. Had I known when I bought it that it would die after 3 months, I never would have bought it. So give me back my money, or even 4 years later, give me back my money, or you buy some food in the store. So today's answer is interesting thing. When do is very important rule. When do we say this rule only 100% about me? So I can say, if I would have known, I wouldn't have done this. But when it comes to buying something as a vendor, and you think the vendor cares, it breaks in 3 months, he's happy. Once he sold it, he doesn't want the goods back. So therefore, you only have 50% of the 50% of this thing here. Your mind is not good enough. That's why Teresa said that this whole thing of the almond is also sorry. The woman is talking about only from Eirson and not from the sea. There's a famous Mordechai that talks about what happens if the husband's brother is a mumer, is frei, is not religious. Would you then? The thing is that you don't need chalitza, and using the logic. And they want to use the logic here from his Gemara here. Had she known that her husband would die, and there was something not religious, and even though the Gemara said Ptolemy's time do, not when it comes to religion, comes to Mukashchin and everything else, okay, she could calculate a risk, but probably there's a possibility she'll end up with somebody who's totally not religious. She never would have married in the first place. Others say it's only limited to if they were only engaged, not if they were actually married. Maybe actually married. Chibas Bia overrides everything. Interesting discussion. Anyway, back to the Gemara. So it said in the Mishnah, it said we learned there were two groups. There was Hayadiv and there was Yedaya, right? So you have to give to there we go. It says if you gave them, it says in the Mishnah, the money has to come before the carbon asham. So you gave the money to one group, the Hayadiv, which is first, and then you gave the asham to Yedaya. That's no problem. But if you do the other way around, it's still good because you can't bring a carbon before the money. And we'll soon Gemara later. How do we know that? It says the Gemara, Nosan Oshim. We have a machlekes here between Yehuda and Chachamim. What happened? Nosan Oshim leHayadiv. You gave the Oshim first to the group Yehayadiv, which really you shouldn't. You should give the money first. You gave Yehayadiv, and then the Kesher Yedaya. You gave the money to Yedaya. Yachzit. So we have to penalize. Okay, they both did something wrong. The Yehayadiv for taking the Oshim without the money, and Yedaya didn't do anything wrong. What did Yedaya do wrong? A week later, the guy gave them the money back. What did they do wrong? You see in a minute. Nevertheless, Abuda says Yedaya did something wrong. Give the money to Yehayariv. Now we have to understand Abuda. Why? We'll see in a minute. What they did wrong. Chachamim say no, we'll punish Yehayariv. Why did they take a carbon before they took the money? Hey, what are you talking about? Elam the Ashram gave the Ashram to Yari b'mishmat in their week. The Hayari and the Kesef Yedaya b'mishmat Yedaya Nuzed Zrach b'Shalzercha b'Shalai. Each one was right in their carbon. So what's going on here? What's the machlekes? Omar Rav Hochmai Skino Tomat. The Yoav Ashram Yari b'mishmat to the Hayari in Yahara's week, but then the Kesef Yedaya b'mishmat to the Yari. We gave the money to Yedaya the week before premature, and so Rabbi Yehuda says. It's not their week. Yedaya can't say we have to punish somebody. We're going to punish Yedaya. We're going to punish Yedaya because they took the money without making sure that the carbon, what's happening with the carbon usher, and they knew the carbon usher was by a yardage. So therefore, we'll punish Yedaya because it's not their week. Anyway, they have no real rights to it. The Rabbanan hold Shaloi Kedin who avoid b'nei Yadiv. Who did the wrong thing here? Okay, they were a bit premature, Yedaya, but Yadav took the carbon without asking for the money. The Kibul Oshim became a Kesef. They took the Oshim of Kesef. They do continue will punish Yadav. The Yachzer Oshim is a Kesef. They have to give now the carbon Oshim to the people of Yedaya, and Yedaya will bring the Oshim, and they're going to split it between themselves. Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, Amar Rebbe says, Rabbi Yehuda holds out what? Who do we penalize? We penalize Yedaya. If let's say the Ayariv is remember Rabbi Yehuda says we penalize Yedaya, but if your Ayariv not only held onto the animal, but they actually brought the animal up, which now they went all the way out. They did totally the wrong thing for bringing the Asham before they received the Kesef. And the din is then we learned before in the Mishnah that you have to bring another Asham. In that case, that they should bring another Asham. We penalize them. They have to bring another Asham and give it to the people Yedaya that they should do the right thing. The Zochu Halal b'Meshe b'Yadon, and they are Zeiche the people of Yariv can keep the first Ashram they brought. For the model of my Chazi, Ashram Pasul, they can keep it. What do they do with it? So an Ashram Pasul, you can't eat from anything else. They get to keep the hide. Tanya, Rabbi said, according to Rabbi again, who says you penalize Yedaya. Im Kayim Ashram, if the Ashram is still around, Yadav didn't bring it up yet. Is Yachzid Ashram Meitzah Kesef. You take the Ashram and you bring it to Yedaya. Now, it's exactly what Rabbi said. What's Rabbi adding to what Rabbi? Exactly what Rabbi said. You penalize the Yadav, you take that animal, you have no rights to it anymore. Because you shouldn't have taken it in the first place when the animal's still alive, bring it to the next group, Yedaya. But Rabbi Yehuda Yachzik Kesef Ashram means the Sayid. So it's all the way around. Rabbi Yehuda says we punish Yedaya, we take the money to if the animal's around. Why are you telling me that the animal has to go Yedaya? That's the view of the Chachamim. That's the view of the Chachamim. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, remember Rabbi Yehuda says that you take the money and you bring it to the Ashram. You take the money from Yedaya and give it to Yadiv. Why does it say you take your animal from Yadiv and give it to Yedaya? But Rabbi Yehuda Yachzik Kesef Eitzel Ashram Isla. He says we're talking about a case where it's the wrong where Yedaya is not really their weak. The Gemara Hochamai Skin can go in the Nofik Mishmar to the Yadiv Veloy Tavo. He's talking about a case over here that the week ended, the week of Yehoyariv ended, and they never asked for the money, which means they're saying to Yedai, you know what, you can keep the money, we're Meichel. They're supposed to get the money distributed amongst their kohanim. They say they're Meichel. They will Meichel the money. They don't really want the money. So in this case, they have to give the carbon to Yehudai because then you have to take the money first and then bring the carbon. So they have to give the carbon to Yedaya. So the Gemara Tanya Idol in another place. If the Asham is still around, Yachze Kesev Eitzel Asham. You bring the money back to the Asham, which is what Rabbi initially said. That the money from Yedaya goes back to Yehoyariv. Shita isn't that obvious? That's exactly what Rabbi said. What's Rabbi saying? Diva Rabbi Yehuda. Hochma is getting a Janofim Mishmartam the Hani. It's 2 weeks later. They both finished their mishmeres, the late tabu, and they did not ask for the money. He didn't ask for the carbon ashram. No, the people of Yedai who have the money should have turned to Yoris and Yorav. We have the money, give us the ashram so we can shecht it and we'll distribute it among ourselves. The people of Yorav who had the ashram never asked Yedai, give us the money so we can distribute it. So Ma'atim, I would have thought, and here we say we still penalize and the money goes back to the ashram. I would have thought, I would have thought that they should be Michael each other. I would have thought that they were Michael each other and they should keep the things where they are. We say since they didn't eat, either one didn't demand to do it right. Therefore, you go back to the way it originally was, and the people from Yedaya have to give the money back to the people of Yariv. Says the Gemara, if you bring what do you call it? The money has to go first, and then the carbon. How do you know the money goes first? Said the pasuk, Ha'asham Hamushiv LaHashem, that this Asham, which we say Asham means the money, Hamushiv LaHashem, LaKoyin. Guy, can I ask you a favor, don't mind, please? We just move to another table. Sorry. Rabba says the Amakra says the pasuk Ha'asham Hamushav LaHashem. That this Asham that is Mushav LaHashem LaKoyin. Then said Mavad El HaKippurim. This is in addition to El HaKippurim Asher Yechapaboy. McCloud. So the way this is an addition. So it sounds like the addition is done afterwards, and first you do the money. McCloud the Kesef, the money comes first. So we have to follow your logic when it says there, Milvad Eilas Habayker. We talk about the Karmus. It says Milvad Eilas Habayker Ashela Eilas Hatamid. According to you, Milvad means that comes later. That means the Musaf comes before the carbon Eilah. Hachinami Mikal Musafim Bereisha and Musa because that's Milvad. But time we learned Menashli a double Kaila Tamid that should say nothing should be before Torah Zacha Tam Lemer but Oracle Eilah. Lama Rabba Eilah Shina. That Eilah comes first. Amalei, I know you're right. You've emphasized the wrong part of the pasuk. It says the Milvad regarding the Ashram says Milvad Ela Kipurim Asher Yechapaboy, future tense that will be used to atone. Nafkale, but I'm keep it means he didn't do it yet. Then the Mishnah said, "Not like the Kenan. If you gave the principal, that means that first you got to give the money. Asham is money, and then you have to give the carbon the ale because it says yechaper boy. This is in addition to the ale that you will eventually bring up.
Totally bypassing that with the
No. So you're saying you thought I said muvad means apart that itself means that comes later. So then we asked a question by Karma Tummy. It says muvad. So the means the Karma Tummy comes later. So he said no, muvad doesn't mean later at all. Muvad could mean earlier. Could be both. Could be either one.
Besides for
exactly. In addition, but we're not telling you chronologically what's the right order. Over here, the way we know it is because it says Asher Yechaper Boy, that you will bring this ale. And over there we have Ha'oil tell you that over there means the other way around. So anyway, the Mishnah says if you gave the keter, you didn't give the chaimish is not ma'akif. The kapar, the keter is the main thing. So now we have another din by mi'ila. Mi'ila is the same thing. You stole from Hegesh b'shoigig. If you steal from Hegesh b'shoigig, the din is you have to pay back the principal, you have to pay back a penalty of a fifth, and you have to bring a carbon asham mi'ila. So it's exactly the same story if you swore false. So whatever didn't apply there, apply here. So we say like this. So you brought the money, you paid the money, and you didn't pay. So first of all, the carbon or heavy hashamay heavy milos. I know they're both critical, the money and the carbon. It says in the pasuk over there. It says that you have to pay. It says in the pasuk then it won't be a slicha until you give the el hasham. Actually, heavy milos or shliach. I know you bring only the carbon asham. You didn't get them on here. Knows and help time. Asham. It says be'el ha'asham. Asham bekvar. The word asham here means money. It's the money you already gave. Be'el is the carbon, and asham is the money. Bekvar. You already get yacha kashem she'el ba'asham akbar. So okay, you need both the el and the asham. Maybe also the penalty also is critical. Otherwise, you're not. There's no atonement. All you need is these two things for slicha: the el and the asham. El asham akvi mehegdish. But the fifth is a penalty you have to pay, but it's not ma'akir. It doesn't hold back the kapara. The yilmad hegdish mehegdish mehegdish. Now we'll compare to this swearing false, and we can learn from each other. Hegdish mehegdish. What do you learn from by gezel again when you swore ma asham the hasam ket? And the word asham there means money. It says here Asham. The El HaAsham, how do you know Asham here means money, not the carbon itself? Could be compare it to by Gezel again. The Hedged Mehagish, my Hagish ain't Chemish Makir over here. The penalty is not hold back. I've had Nami ain't Chemish Makir. The Chemish is not hold back. Had Nalacha Gezelation. Now goes the last Pedic of Bava Kama. We're still talking about stealing, but here we're talking about more about the person who I guess the fencer or the other person who bought a third party. What's their involvement? So remember, we had a machlekes if Yeyish alone is koino or not koino. The guy abandons hope. The original is koino, not anim, and if Yeyish is not koino, it's Yeyish and Shin Rishus together. That means that if another party has it after the Yeyish, then it is koino. So says the Mishnah. The Mishnah is a bit cryptic, and we'll have different opinions how to understand the Mishnah. Hagoizel, if somebody stole something, umachil bana gives it to his children to eat, and or he niach lifneim, he placed it before them, he died. The children don't have to pay. They're now a third party. We'll see in the Gemara later if Rishus Yoshim is Kirishus Lakecha, they consider like a third party of strangers, or they just a continuation like Brokar Nabu, the continuation of their father or mother. They don't have to pay. Now, why don't they? Are we talking about before years? We're talking about after years. What are we talking about there? And we will see Rambam holds even before years they don't have to pay. And the Abchizah holds only after years you don't have to pay. Before years, it's still the owners. And now, also, it's not clear. Is the object still around? Michael means the object is no longer around. What does that mean? The animal's still there and they don't have to pay back? Or the animal, for sure you have to pay back. Talking about the animal's consumed. Now there's a debt. They don't have to pay the father's debts. So what's going on here? Very cryptic. Now it sounds like we're talking about the stolen item. If the stolen item is something that has a chay, which is usually property, is chayavim l'shal. But we'll see. Rabbi learns that what the father left behind assets was property, but not that the stolen item itself was property. So, no. Separate. The father left the property. We know that it comes to father's debts. You don't have to pay. Metalton the Yashmin is not indebted to pay the father's debts. But the property that they yashed from the father, the money they yashed the father, they don't have to pay the father's debts. But the property of the Yashin father is a lien on them from the Chayav, and therefore they collect. So there's two ways of understanding the Mishnah. As you can see, there's so many ways to understand. Let's go to the Gemara. Rav Chizda comes along and says, "That's halacha gozal v'loinis yasha bailim." What happens? The father stole it, and the owner was not meyayish, or anybody stole it, and the guy was meyayish. And another guy came along and ate it from him. So now it's no longer in existence. The second guy, if it's in existence, don't talk about it. You go back until you take it. It's your item. But if it's no longer in existence, since it was before Yehush, they both are chayiv. Now, why are they both chayiv? Famous in Lamed Daled, where the Psal says the pshat is, he said, why going to make a ganav? He says, what makes you a ganav? Taking it out of the reshus of the original owner. Anything you do beyond that is not a ganav. And therefore, he said, I'm going to make a ganav. Potter, why? Somebody steals from a ganav, because you can't be a ganav a second time in the same item you stole, because ganav is the maisa of taking it out from the other person. So therefore, so he says, what's pshat? So why why go to the second person? Because he's a mazik. Because as long as the item was still around, even though the thing guy's not a ganav, the original owner could have taken it back. Now that he's no longer around, you destroyed it. You were mazik it. And that's why you are paying. And then the Sivas argues, and he says no. He says that what's the inyan of a ganav? Every second that you're not giving it back, you're a ganav. Every second that you're holding on something that belongs to you, you're a ganav. So the second guy's also a ganav. Not just a mazik, the second guy is a ganav as well. Anyway, my time, as long as the bailam around, it's still b'shus the murder. Either it's a different, either you're a mazik or now you became the ganav. Second ganav. Well, let's go back to our Mishnah. Tonight, the Mishnah, you stole and you fed your children, it's no longer around. And you left it for them. You just said that what? That rotzim is that goiva. So how come you can't collect the children? So you've to Rav Chizda. I'll measure talking about after years. I said goes out the loin this yaisha. The owner was not yayish. Then even though the second person took it, you can go to either one. You can go to either one. Now the Tzachachoshen says, even though what's the svara if there was no yish that you tell me the second guy's not a ganef? I gave you a svara, but more than that. Taisha here, the long Taisha here says that even if you hold yish not koina, you did weaken the connection from the original owner with the item. How? Because now if once the shini reshus, even though there's no yish, the owner can no longer make it hegdish. Yeah. Before that, the owner could have made hegdish, and now that you stole it, he has the control to make it hegdish. So you weakened his bailus.
What is there?
No. Gaza shnei men yochel hagdishu. Zel lefi shein shaloi, zel lefi shein b'shusa. You made his balabatushkeit weaker. Exactly. Anyway. Says the Gemara further. So Rav Chizda says after years, the second guy's potter because the years should reshus. Before years, Shiratzim is that great. Our Mishnah is talking about before years. Says the Gemara Vaited. Rambam Chama argues where it actually learns that Rambam Chama is actually going to hold that even before years, Rambam Chama is going to hold that even before years, if the Mishnah can be talking about and you are potter, you are potter. Because as I just told you, because it can't be a gana for a second time. I think the pshat in the Mishnah is reshus yedish keshus. Okay, you know why you potter? Because it's like the shini reshus, and the shini reshus. Why shini reshus? Because it's chada yoshim. Must be that yoshim are treated like strangers. Reshus yedish keshus like a stranger. Rabbi says, I hold reshus yedish lav keshus like I hold that a yedish is a straight line from the father. There's no separate finger. So how can the children not potter? You know why the children potter? It's still in the reshus of the father, and they have to pay. Talking about there's no longer around. There's no longer around. What is it now? A debt. A debt. A debt you don't have to pay. Says the Gemara. And you can't do that, and you can't go to the children because the fact that they didn't steal it. So so therefore they're potter. So it says in the sefer, if the item is something that has a chrayis, Chayav and l'sham, they have to pay back. Right now, we're understanding. We're talking about the item itself. In other words, the item is still in existence. Because if it's destroyed, who cares? You're talking about still in existence, which means the mission talking about still in existence. What do you tell me? Therefore, all you have is a debt, and that's why the children don't have to pay. But it says here, if this item which is still in existence happens to be a choshev item, so I was covered of the father, they have to pay back. That means that if it's not a choshev item, you don't have to pay back. But why not? The item is still in existence. So if you learn it's Yeshushin shows, I understand why you have to give it back. But if you're telling me that Yeshus Yodesh is not Yeshus Lekech, which means this the father's still here, the item is still here. What do you mean you have to give it back? I'm telling you, say for you, talking about something that's in existence. The boss is not chashuv. So why don't you have to give it back? If Rishus Yodesh is like the father told. You misunderstood the mission. You think the mission talking about the item itself. The item is no longer in existence. So now what is it? A debt. And children don't have to pay the father's debts. But if the father had assets, then there's a lien on the assets to pay the father's debts. It's not the children paying off the father's debts. It's the assets who already were encumbered are being paid off to the people who they're owed to. If the father left behind property, then they have to pay. The Gemara, Rebbe, but let me ask a question. Rebbe clearly told, when he learned the Braisa, Rebbe told Reb Shimon Berei. Rebbe told Reb Shimon his son how to learn Pshat. He said, it doesn't, you'll see from Rebbe's explanation of the son, we're not talking about where the father left behind assets, we're talking about the item that was stolen. And the item is still in existence. And Rebbe says to the son, when it says here in the Mishnah that what it says, it doesn't only mean property. Even a cow. But a cow is choshev enough that people, when they see this cow, say, "Oh, that's your uncle's cow." So it's not covered. When every time they look at this cow, people say, "Oh." They're reminded that this kid's father is a ganef and stole somebody else's cow. So it's covered, and the father should pay back. So what does he clearly? How do they understand that we're talking about the item is still in existence? We're talking about the item is still in existence. Chamoid. Or a donkey. These are all things that are chayav and lahaz, and they cover them in. So what do we see clearly? We're talking about the item is still in existence, and yet the kids don't have to pay back if it's not a choshev thing. Only if and even the choshev thing, why are you paying it back now? Because I have to. So only cover the father. You just said that the Rishus Yodesh is a lav killer keach. This is still considered like this is the father. What do you mean doesn't give it back? Why doesn't give it back? So if you learn like Bava Kama that Rishus Yodesh kiskul keach like a fremde. That's why.
He never did tshuva. He died.
That's right. Exactly.
We're telling the kids you have to have the chesed father.
Cover the year. Yeah. No, so we already had another Gemara. He did tshuva right before we already had another Gemara. No. We had another Gemara that he did tshuva, but he didn't have a chance. He died right before he gave it back. That's what we're talking about. You're right. Otherwise, Oisa Maisa,
That's interesting that the Chazal concerned with these
No, but we already had before. The Mora actually asked that question. Mora says that he did tshuva, but he speak to give it back till he died. Ela Marava, and Arav said a very interesting thing here. He says an interesting expression. He says, Kishachivna, when I will pass away, Rabbi Oishi and Nofig Levosi in Gan Eden, Rabbi Oishi will come out of Gan Eden and come and welcome me in Shemayim. The Taritzla Masnis and Kavose, because I like to learn Mishnahs like Rabbi Oishi, not like Rebbe. Interesting. Rebbe is the one, the redactor of all the Mishnahs. You would think that Rebbe knows exactly what he meant when he wrote this Mishnah. This is a raya to what we learned. Remember, I showed you Taisa a few weeks ago, where Taisa says that Rebbe did not write the Mishnahs. All he did was he put the order to it, because the Mishnah was already written before. If you learn Rebbe actually wrote the Mishnahs, it's impossible to say that Rebbe will say, I like Rabbi Oishi's shot in the Mishnah better than the Rebbe, and Rebbe wrote it. And Rebbe told the son what he meant. So it's clear, raya, that the Rebbe did not write the Mishnahs. Right? Remember Rabbi and Tam said over there. And yeah, the Tani Rabbi said, Agoizel Michael Bonav to Mashalim, he niach lifneim gzeila kayemes chayavet. He says clearly, if the gzeila is kayemes the chay, if the gzeila no longer around the potter, he niach lehem aviyim achrayis nechosim. But if the father left behind assets, real estate, then they have to pay. Clear. What are we talking about? We say we're not talking about the actual stolen goods. We're talking about the stolen goods are no longer around. But if the father only left them metaltlin in the Yerusha, they don't have to pay. Metaltlin the Asmer. But if the father left behind real estate, so this is a raya to Rava's pshat. You said before, It says before, if the Gzela is no longer around, they're potter. Now, name to have its use. Rav Chizda said, you can collect from either one, right? It says that if you ate it up, you collect from either one, even though it's no longer in existence. If it's before years, how come over here it says that what that if the Gzela is not around the potter? Like you said before, the Bryce is talking about after years. After years is a different story because it's years and shit rishus. So therefore, they are potter. We just say Gzela Kayem is if Gzela is still in existence, Chayovin says in the Bryce if Gzela is in existence, then Chayovin you have to bring it back. Name it. Because remember, Yom Chama is talking about after years. After years, even the Gzela is Kayem, the year in Shin Rishus. Remember, Yom Chama learned the Pshat and the Mishnah is after years. Kitanya, he lives in the years. The Mishnah is after years, but that Bryce is before years. So this is the discussion we have around Bava Kama Daf on this Mishnah. Tomorrow we'll see that we have the exact same discussion on the different Bryce altogether.